I've been speaking a lot recently about the rather, shall we say, lackluster launch window and launch day lineup for the Nintendo Switch, and speaking about how the presence of some really strong indie games could definitely help that value proposition of the Switch. However, as we all know, Nintendo doesn't really have a brilliant reputation when it comes to working with indie developers. There are a few small developers, of course, who've managed to get their games on the Switch, but, you know, compared to the massive library of indie games that are on both the PlayStation and Xbox platforms, the percentage that are on Nintendo platforms is rather small, shall we say. But it seems that the opportunity, at least, is there for this to change with the Switch, as Tyrone Rodriguez, who is the guy in charge of Nicalis, who you probably know best for the Binding of Isaac and its expansions, and has spoken on the topic of how they've worked closely with Nintendo in the recent years. And of course, the Binding of Isaac is probably one of the few banner indie games who not only have managed to get on Nintendo platforms despite its rather Nintendo unfriendly gameplay style, it is of course coming to the Switch as well. And he said, quote, "We were fortunate enough to have prototype developer hardware for the Wii U, 3DS, etc. So we already had a good relationship with Nintendo to get the Switch a little bit early." Now, of course, the Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus, which of course is the latest expansion for the game, but it's going to be a whole collection on there as well, is going to be launching on the Nintendo Switch, but of course it only just came out on PC about a month ago, so that fairly speedy transition from PC to console is not terribly common, especially of course when you're talking about a smaller development team. And apparently one of the reasons for that, as well as of course the fact that they had early access, is the new development tools for the Switch hybrid console. And Tyrone said, quote, "The Switch is by far the easiest and most programmer friendly so far. I know this sounds like lip service to Nintendo, but it's actually not. If this wasn't true, we wouldn't be able to get these games up and running as quickly as we have, and wouldn't be able to have a launch title. It's light years ahead of what we were doing with the Wii U." Of course, not all the weight was laid at the feet of Nintendo or even the Switch itself, of course. Some of it was due to Nicalis' development techniques when it comes to things such as unifying their games across multiple platforms. You know, the Binding of Isaac has come out on pretty much everything but a pocket calculator at this point, and one of their techniques for decreasing their workload is to unify their games across multiple platforms as much as possible, which obviously decreases the port time, and one of these main things is achievements. And he said, quote, "We put hooks in so that the code will work on any platform. So for example, if there was a console that didn't have achievements, you can't have achievements on those games. But in the case of Isaac, we built the achievements right into the game." But of course, that's slightly off topic. We're more focusing on what the Switch has to offer indie developers, and it does seem that this easier to work with nature is being felt by other indie developers as well. As of course, Nicalis will be having competition on the platform. Games like Stardew Valley and Tumbleseed are going to be making their way to the console, as well as I'm sure many others in the future. And let us not forget the mighty Shovel Knight. Now I'm sure Nicalis are mostly happy about the competition that they're facing. You know, as great as it was to have the platform pretty much to themselves, as they will say in just a second, more competition is better. Having a more indie-friendly platform is definitely better, not only for developers but for customers as well. And if you know that, hey, I can get all these indie games that I love on this system as well, then again it just increases that value proposition. And Tyrone finished up by saying, quote, "We used to enjoy the lack of developers coming to Nintendo consoles. It was a lot less competition, but it's not a bad thing. More good games on every platform is good for the industry. I'm very happy Nintendo is trying to get more games for this platform." So, of course, the proof, as always, is in the pudding, and we're going to have to see exactly how many indie games actually make their way to the Switch. And, of course, I'd love to hear, again, from more indie developers regarding the ease of development from the Switch. I might even see if I can get any comment on that. I doubt I can before release, but hey-ho, you never know, they might surprise us. But I'm definitely wanting to know because, you know, see, the ease of development isn't the only consideration. You know, you've got to consider, is it actually worth the time the manpower and so on. Do we have enough audience on this new platform, yada yada yada. But obviously making it a lot easier to make the change from, say, PC to the Switch or what have you is obviously going to be very appealing to even the biggest of developers. So we're going to have to see what the future holds for the Switch, but welcoming indie developers much more openly than they have in the past is definitely not going to hurt the Switch's chances. And while an indie game isn't exactly going to be a system seller by itself, it's not exactly going to hurt either. Thank you very much for watching though, your support is always appreciated, and I'll see you next time.